Thank you, Nathan. My name is David Newell. I'm the president of Scotland Campus, and I'm honored to be here this afternoon or morning still. It seems like afternoon, and I am getting hungry just like Nathan is, and probably smells great outside as you smell that the pork cooking. But it's just a pleasure to be with you. I wanted to spend some time dealing with some things that I believe are important to the community, and particularly those that are entrepreneurial in scope and in their business. How many entrepreneurs do we have here? Okay. Entrepreneurs are a different kind of breed, and we want to talk a little bit about that today. That was just a brief commercial that we had, and if you don't know what's going on here, we have a lot of educational organizations attached to the campus, as well as some business organizations. And our student body literally is global. They are from all over the world here. But I want to tell you a story. Lynn, you may have heard this story before at some point, but just pretend you haven't if it sounds familiar. But we have a mutual friend, and I don't know if you've heard this from her or not, but she was telling us that there were some people that came from another country, and they were visiting, and they came to the home, and they were staying long, and pretty soon it was supper time. So she invited them to eat dinner with them on that evening, and they had a nice evening, and then after dinner they left. Well, at dinner time the next night they showed up again, so she felt obligated, and she invited them to dinner again the second time. The next night, the third time, they came to dinner again just right at dinner time, and she thought, this can't go on. We have to do something about this. So she came up with something, I think, rather ingenious. After dinner, she took the plates off of the table, set them down on the floor, and the dog licked them. And then she took the plates and put them back in the cupboard. That's a different kind of mind. That's something that you and I would not ordinarily do. She had to come up with a solution to get around a problem. So we're going to deal with the mind of the entrepreneur. And the rubric that I'm going to use today is from James Clausen, University of Virginia, one of the best business books ever written, Level 3 Leadership. Great book. It's expensive if you try to buy it new, $100-some bucks. I've made it as a mandatory text in some of the graduate classes that I've taught. It's very, very important. But James Clausen talks about the leader, the entrepreneur, in three primary tenets, and we're going to unpack this a little bit. First of all, he says that the entrepreneur sees all that needs to be done, with an emphasis on all that needs to be done. It's part of the mindset. And they understand all of the underlying forces at play in the enterprise. Two of our speakers have touched on that, but understanding all of the underlying forces at play in the enterprise. And thirdly, having the courage to initiate action to make things better. So let's unpack that a little bit. Seeing all that needs to be done. The entrepreneur has to have the ability to see a bigger picture, as well as understand all of the finer points. As Erica spoke about Bubba, Bubba is a big picture individual. Most entrepreneurs are somewhat big picture, but sometimes they are of the engineering background, which can get into the details. So there's a combination of both, and you need both. If you have them, the ability to see the larger picture and put the pieces together, and you can see all the small minutia of the details, that's also spectacular. So they can see in their mind's eye what the end objective is going to be and what the success of an initiative is going to look like. Not everybody has that mindset. If you don't, that's okay. You have another set of gifts and skills and capabilities, but not everybody has the ability to see what an end product should look like or how a business should flow together to perform in an optimal fashion. So the entrepreneur not only has the vision, but they can see that vision and how it's going to be realized and how all of the component parts fit together. That's a big order. It's a tall order. The more complex the organization, the more complex the entrepreneurial enterprise or the initiative, the more difficult it becomes to see all of the components working together. So they see all that needs to be done. And secondly, they understand all of the underlying forces at play in the enterprise. Mike, you had on your graphic, which you can't always really appreciate the depth to what that graphic really communicates. There is so much. There are books written on one item in that graphic, multiple forms of information and areas of study with just those components. You have to be in tune with the culture. If you are an entrepreneur, you have to know what the overall culture is like. You have to break that down. What are the economic factors in the culture in which you are moving your product? What is the social fabric? How is a community tied together? What types of things keep it comprised and holding together? What is the political landscape? You can begin an entrepreneurial enterprise and find out that the political landscape is not favorably disposed to your initiative, and you've got one more battle that, had you done your research and understood, you would not have to fight. The economic issues, the social fabric, the political landscape. You have to understand the governmental structures, not only of the area in which you are working, but the larger issues. And then also the support agencies, those individuals or agencies to which you will be connected that will help you move your product forward. Then you have to have the mind to connect the interplay of all of those dynamics. And folks, I want to tell you right now, not everybody can do that. Not everybody that begins an enterprise or a venture is necessarily an entrepreneur. They may be moving into an entrepreneurial activity, but they may not have all that it takes to bring it to fruition and bring it to success. You have to have a mind that sees all the interplay and connects the dots in such a way that moves your product forward. And the mind has to be disciplined, and disciplined with a certain degree of developed intuition. There are those individuals, study after study, as to what are the best business practices for this area or this product line or that product line in this particular field of endeavor. But oftentimes it comes down to the leader having some type of gut instinct, just intuition that drives things forward. If you want to know more about intuition, Malcolm Gladwell in the book Blink really hits that hard. So a developed intuition. And then you have to have the ability to synthesize large quantities of information. Some industries are industry-driven or information-rich, and you have to be able to synthesize all of that. Synthesis is not something that is easily achieved. Not everyone has the capacity to bring these various components, multiple variables, and moving parts into a quantifiable, monetized, understandable product format that can be used to increase your bottom line in your venture. You have to have a mind that is geared to continual innovation, or as some people call it, the Japanese word is kaizen, which is continual improvement. You have to have that as a model. Nathan hit it square on the head when he talked about people that would say, well, I've done it this way or that way for years. How many of you are familiar with the problems of innovation as described by Clayton Christensen? Anybody familiar with Clayton Christensen? Oh my goodness. Follow everything that Clayton Christensen does, and your world and your understanding about business and enterprise and innovation will be opened up. He's one of the foremost authorities on the processes that have been discovered over time, mainly by Clayton. Clayton is a business professor from Harvard University and wrote Innovator's Problem, his first book, Innovator's Solution, Innovation DNA, and multiple things on how organizations move with a product and innovate. There are so many companies, 1 in 10 companies that begin will succeed, just one. What separates the winners from the losers oftentimes is the ability to adapt to their environment and know when the environment is changing and know when the conditions are changing. There are so many businesses that will say, we've done it for 15 years, it's always worked, and not understand that while they've been creating this model, somebody else is employing or deploying a disruptive technology that's going to beat them. QR codes. Here's a classic example. I was sitting on the beach this summer reading a book from a very prominent professor at one of the most prominent Pennsylvania universities in the field of business. And his book was full of QR codes. Now, I had already met Purple Deck. I had gotten an idea as to what they were doing. And that book came out 2015. He did not know how behind the times he was. The book just came out. He was in the QR code world, and the world shifted. And he's at one of our leading universities. He didn't know. They are on the edge of the curve. You have to have the mind that is geared to continual innovation. You have to have an organizational commitment to constant improvement as a motto, as something that you want to do, with a high level of commitment and mental strength. This is where the rubber hits the road. A high level of commitment, mental strength. It takes mental strength to push through the ostracism, push through the criticism, push through the rebukes of those who, from oftentimes their lofty position on the sidelines, know how you should be doing things and how you are to best move forward. You have to have the mental toughness to move forward in those areas of domain. You have to have the courage to initiate action to make things better. I'm going to give you the third Henry Ford quote. I began a master's degree. It was an MBA program. This was the first thing I would write. I was the instructor. First thing I'd write on the board was Henry Ford. You've heard him now 3 times today, and it's related to the can't. He said, and this is where I go. I look for these types of people. I am looking for a lot of men who have an infinite capacity to not know what can't be done. There are so many people that will tell you it can't be done. The entrepreneur has to break away from that and stretch the abilities beyond the scope of what other people think might be achievable. We're at Scotland campus. This is a ridiculous notion. If you knew what has transpired here, I was a consultant hired by Weinberger Theological Seminary to get them operational in the state of Pennsylvania, and then they hired me to find a campus and then to grow campus. We landed here. I believe the Lord brought us here. He dumped that treasure in our lap, and the interesting thing is we had no money. How does that happen? Only the Lord does those types of things, but my conviction was we can do it, and now we are pulling people from all over the world that are coming to this campus. So you have to have the courage to take the initiative and delve into action that will actually make things better. The entrepreneur has to understand and have the mental drive to get things done. That's an issue. In your business, there are so many people that you will meet that oftentimes they're on the lower levels. They're not in the leadership position. They are in a position maybe where they're executing on an administrative level. They are all key and all critical to the movement of the organization of the business, but sometimes there are those individuals who just don't have the mental toughness to push an event or an organization through some of the challenges. The successful entrepreneur will, as you heard Mrs. Jones speak, you will know yourself. You have to know yourself. You have to know your strengths, you have to know your weaknesses, and how you are going to close the gap between the two. I'm a bigger picture person, but in some of my work, I had to work with the government so I can get into minutia, but I can't stand it. I don't like the small things. I like working on the bigger picture and getting people who can move in the minutia and get those things done. But you have to know and understand your capabilities and your competencies and close the gap between what you have and what you don't have and move things forward. Many people have a significant degree of experience in a variety of different things, Most people have some skills, some talents, and some area of giftedness, but oftentimes what separates them from the entrepreneurial success is that lack of drive or lack of initiative. Things that get done just don't happen. Sometimes you have to drive them and push them through. You have to have some resolve to push and to push through difficult times. We've heard risk mentioned a number of times. There are those people, entrepreneurs, you know this, there are those people, and we talked about measured risks. There are those times when, as an entrepreneurial individual pushing through, you are prone and okay with and comfortable with taking a risk where there is no safety net. The paycheck stops, and you have nothing to fall back on except maybe what you have set up. My sister speaks all over the country now on call systems. She's an expert in call systems. But she just made this move a few months ago. She had a $25,000 raise. It was highly paid, but she at 56 decided she wanted more for her life and wanted to address a challenge and a dream of her life, and she took the leap. No paycheck to fall back on. And she's doing quite well. But she understood that there's a risk associated with that. There are so few people that really, in the core of their being, are designed and made to take risk. Does that bear testimony with any of you? Scott, 2 businesses that you're doing. Those are risk-taking things, ventures that create a different level of enjoyment in life and maybe prosperity in life. But in order to get there, you have to assume some risk. You have to have higher degree of information synthesis, an inside and not an outside focus. This is absolutely critical. I'm going to tell you what an inside versus an outside focus is. An inside focus means that there is something within you that is internal, maybe something related to your values, something attitudinal that has been formed over your life, your belief system. If you're a Christian, your faith in Christ, your expectations about life, those values, the attitudes, your beliefs, your expectations are internal things. And if you're going to take a step forward, you have to be driven by something that is so deeply rooted in you, because when the other stuff comes, if you are motivated from something outside yourself, you won't be able to make it. That's the difference between inside and outside. Inside people care most about what they believe and what God believes. People that are outside motivated listen to all of the other voices and what they believe over what they believe, and it leads them down a trail to failure. An entrepreneur has to have a different kind of mind. He has to push through. That's the difference between outside and inside. It takes courage because, folks, there are always those who have neither the desire nor the understanding to move forward in a venture, nor the ability to see and synthesize all of the interrelated parts of your organization. It has been very, very clear to me. I've learned over the last 3 years something I really was not aware of, and I've started 4 different businesses. None of those have not been successful. Everyone has been successful. But my interest changed, so I shut one down and do something else. And even while we're at Scotland campus, I have another business, and you'll see the banner, the Academy for Global Leadership. Unbelievable things happening through that. There are those individuals that will come into your scope, and you try to relay your story, and they can't grasp it. So you try to bring it down to the bare bones, as we saw with the drawing of the bull. You bring it down to the bare bones, and they still can't grasp it. An entrepreneur has to be okay with living with the inability of others to grasp what you're doing and push forward. There are always naysayers. Have you ever had naysayers? They come out of the woodwork, and the more complex your venture, the more they come out. when people don't understand something, I don't know if you've ever experienced this or if it's been true for you, but for me, if they don't understand something, they make something up or try to understand something. It happens all the time. It takes courage to push through all that because other people can't see what you're trying to do. And when they can't see, they can't understand, they become a critic, oftentimes. As was mentioned earlier, you have to remove yourself from some of that negativity. If your focus is not based on something internal, you won't have the strength to push forward when everyone else is around you saying it can't be done. But what differentiates an entrepreneur or an innovator from the rest of the crowd is they don't listen to that voice and they don't give in. They keep pushing. The entrepreneur needs the drive, they need the resolve to stand in the face of tremendous adversity, lots of challenge, and as Winston Churchill said, I have this on my wall in my office, never, never, never give up. Thank you.